All right. I hope everybody can hear me. Please chime in and let me know if we're good on the audio and video, if you can see that. I am actually going to swap out my. There I am. Good afternoon, or good evening, good morning to everyone. Good to see y'all. Let's take a look and see what's going on in the market. Gold is selling off, so I'm going to try to move my screen capture here. Let me adjust this. I'm going to go to there, and I'm going to actually put it right there so everybody can see it. We've got 7 attendees. Let me know if you can hear me. We're going to begin here momentarily. All right. Well, we're seeing oil kind of come up here, and so I want to actually walk through a couple of these markets. And I'm going to run a quick test. Oh, yeah. Okay. You guys should be able to hear me. All right. Let's get going here. It's 7 o'clock, and in the evening, I'm Michael Beaton. I'm a trader primarily in the futures market. I've been trading professionally full time for the last 3 years. And prior to that, have a long history in working as a runner 30 years ago on the Chicago Board of Trade. Took a bit of a detour post MBA to do some marketing, but find myself back in trading and frankly loving it. What you're seeing today is we're going to walk through the markets. I've also got a an indicator that I've built, so you'll see a lot of that. That's primarily the indicator is built on what it is that I do and how I view the market, and you'll see that. And then we're gonna walk through all these markets, primarily crude oil being the first one and probably the most important one. It is the straw that is stirring the drink, if you will, around the markets. It's when crude oil is up, gold and stocks sell off, and vice versa. And it's been that way really ever since the hostilities began with Iran and the U.S. So let's look at oil. I'm going to first go in and I'm going to modify this. We're going to look at it on the 4-hour basis. I'll pull the indicator off, and we're just going to look primarily at the trend. And so one of the things that you will see is that a couple of things. We are in a big wedge pattern. This is undetermined as to where this ultimately goes. If you put a rectangle across it and with the 50% line, we just crossed the 50% line today. We're just a little bit above it right now. I would say that we are probably looking towards some sort of a breakout, but that has not been confirmed just yet. All that being said, we did open the day at a high. We sold off, and we sold, I think, back to value, and now we're going to see if ultimately this is going to turn into a bigger run, a move back up into these highs at 101.53 on futures. And I think that that's likely to happen. So What you're going to see here is that this is as a flag, it either goes up or it's going to go down. I don't have any indication yet to tell me that it's going down. And when you look at the dynamics in the marketplace, we are in backwardation. Backwardation meaning these front months. This is the May crude oil contract right now. That is the current front month. That is trading at a premium relative to the other months behind it. And so, because we're in backwardation, the market is tight right now, with the opportunity for it to eventually sell off. But here's the interesting thing: I do think that that's going to happen. So I do anticipate weaker oil going forward. But the issue is that we may have a pretty big run up, and maybe we go back and we touch these highs first and double top before that happens. There is tightness in the marketplace. There is no question. If you want oil from Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Bahrain, you're talking about 140 to 150, $160 per barrel right now. And I think that situation is probably going to persist for a while, maybe longer than a lot of people would have hoped for. So, provided that context, let's get into some of the smaller time frames. And I can look at the 15-minute, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to reestablish, because it's kind of important. I'm going to reestablish this indicator, my indicator, and the reason why I built this indicator was a couple of things. One, it gives me a very useful understanding in terms of the intraday. And on the intraday, crude oil, you'll notice, actually opened at H4. So if you're familiar with the Camarilla pivots, and I look at Camarilla pivots on a time frame that is intraday. I'll also look at the weekly, and so they'll be listed. But my indicator provides the Camarilla pivots up here. And so I noticed that when we opened at H4 and we did not hold, that was a sell, and they sold it not just through H4, but they actually sold it through to H3. And so H3 was 97.65. Now, interestingly enough, we have actually held this H3. So if we're not traveling to L3 or L4, then there's a good chance that this is the high of the range, this is the bottom of the range, and we're going to try to figure out some sort of upward movement to go back and retest the top of the range. Bouncing between H3 and H4 is pretty normal, and that's a sign of coiling. So there may be some coiling action up here, and I frankly wouldn't be surprised to see a pretty substantial move here as we progress through the evening. Now, what does that mean for these other markets? We'll get into that, but I'll let you look and at this. We do have a pretty strong bull trend up, which you can see on the 15-minute. This may have been a bit of a selling climax peak, but one thing I know about oil is that it likes to readdress and always goes for a retest. So honestly, I really do like the highs up here at 101.50, and I think we're going to go after it here momentarily. I really do think that we were bid off of these levels here. Really kind of a great little buy entry here off of the 96.41. I actually am long, and I am long one crude from this 96.50 level. I noticed that we got a little bit of a bounce there, and so I was happy about that. So that's a good start to the week, and we'll see where this ultimately ends up. All right, let's take a look at the 5-minute, because I think that the 5-minute also is showing some support here. You'll notice that I have a couple of things. I've built within this indicator the Bollinger Bands, and I also have some custom EMAs that I have set up. And those Bollinger Bands and EMAs help me just give me a general direction and an understanding in terms of where to potentially buy. We're going to be looking for a little bit of a bounce here in crude right off of this little level here. And so, a couple of critical things is that the time frame is still mixed. So what I like to do is I like to trade off of the 15-minute and the 5-minute time frames. I got a 15-minute signal that was a deep signal here. When it came down to it on the 5-minute chart, I still have not received that confirmation signal. I'm deep in the money, so I've got a $900 or $800 profit at the moment. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll be trailing it up and looking for additional confirmation. I actually want to see these turn up, and I want to see the 5-minute and the 10-minute actually give me solid buy signals, and then I'll frankly add more to the position. So hopefully that helps all of you and gives you some understanding in terms of kind of how I'm trading. I love the buying the pullback, and I think crude gave me an excellent opportunity to buy in this mid 90s area. Now, what does this mean for gold, which is frankly what many of you all trade? I think gold, as I said, gold and stocks are really kind of tied at the hip. And what you'll notice is when oil was going down, gold was going up, and when oil is going up, gold is going down. And so we're still locked into a pretty substantial sell. I'm going to do the same thing and look at the 4-hour chart. On the 4-hour chart for crude oil, you'll notice that yes, we're in a pretty substantial decline. We're probably getting closer though to some sort of a bottom here in gold. I wouldn't say the exact bottom, but I do think that there's going to be a level that I'm going to be very interested in buying. Let me show you why that's the case. If I go to the daily, you'll notice that there is a low here at 44.26 on futures or 44.30 on futures. I think we're going to go after that low. But I think that there's support right underneath it, and in this 4,300 to 44.50 area, it's some pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting buy. The other thing that I'd be looking at is that we've had 2 touches in gold on the daily time frame, and I think that ultimately what ends up happening is we're going to have a third, and that's going to be a pretty substantial increase, and it's frankly going to be something that nobody is thinking about or expecting, but I would tell you to expect it because this pattern generally resolves in threes, and so I could see a third lower peak in gold at some point in the not too distant future. And it realistically only took us 3-4 days to get down to this level. So yeah, I mean we can certainly start a rally and build it back up, and that's why I'm kind of interested in figuring out where the oil bottom is and when stocks and gold start to look good again. At the moment, they're not. So I would still be short, and we'll see how this day ends up. But you can already tell that there is a substantial little resistance area. Let me define that for us here. There's a pretty good resistance area that could be a fair value gap if for those who want to play that. This area here, if we can't hold and we're not able to trade above 44.94 in gold is a pretty wicked resistance, and that's just going to frankly mean more downside. We're also notice we're also in a little bit of a megaphone pattern, so that's why I do think ultimately we can continue to be under pressure in gold, especially as oil rallies or even sticks around 100. If it's around 100, I think the ears are up and people are going to get a little bit concerned and worried. And so realistically, you're going to need to see gold get sold or oil get sold off for these other things to rally around gold and stocks. But in the meantime, this is a critical level, so this 44.94 area, got to get above it. But ultimately, 45.75 is the level that I think we've really got to pass, and we've got to see some sort of a bottoming out pattern, which might take a little bit of time. And actually, if you notice, gold is still selling off on the 5-minute chart, and so we've got some issues. Moving right along because I want to show. Let's show this off. So the time frame, bearish on all time frames. Now the issue is, can you short it here? No, you can't, because we've had a pretty strong decline already. So this is not great. There are better places to short, and if you look, I can identify a few of them. Right here, there is this EMA. It's on a 30-minute time frame, and that area has been fantastic. It's my higher time frame short. That's ideally where you want to be. So if you want to short gold, if you short here, it's a B trade at best. And I do have it listed at a 68%, so it's a B, maybe a B plus. On the shorter time frame, you can get away with shorting it here. It's a 78% probability, and yes, these probabilities are calculated on what's going on in the marketplace right now. I've put rules in and that sort of thing. So I do think that yes, shorts are pretty valid here. Your only issue is you've got to it's not an A or an A plus trade. You're really being challenged with regards to location, trade location, and we're kind of at a spot where if the market turns around, if gold decides to turn around or oil decides to turn around, it can find a bid just as it's doing right now. So something to think about. Some other things to look at here on gold. Let's look at the 5-minute, and on the 5-minute chart, I've got somebody, one of my clients is asking me a question. It'll have to wait. But on a 5-minute chart, on gold here, what you'll see is a couple of things. We opened up right at the cam pivots L3, between L3 and L4, the exact opposite of oil. So it was not a surprise that when we gapped lower, we just rocketed right through and went much, much higher. That's not a surprise at all. Now, what has happened is L3 has kind of served as a bit of a resistance point, and so we also have a fair value gap that served as a bigger resistance point up here. And this area up here in this area, that's going to be resistance. That's going to be the thing that gold will have to get over if it's expected to move higher. And truth be told, given where it's at, given its weakness, I wouldn't be surprised to see us back at L4. Now, what happens is it's either going to find a double bottom at L4, or if we go through L4, that's a breakdown and a potential breakout. And if you can hold that, there'd be even lower levels to come. So that's how I use my Camarilla pivots in conjunction with this. You'll also notice the yellow line here. That is the session point of control. So we are starting to fade on gold from that session point of control, and that could actually mean lower prices going forward. So we notice here that there was a rebound probability. Now we're waiting for some sort of expansion southward here to actually prove to us that gold is indeed a sell here. And you'll notice that the moving averages are providing resistance, and it is slowly but surely marching down. And we'll see if they can hold it. They frankly have to hold this 44.88 level on gold. Otherwise, I think we will see a continued selling into the lows and potentially beyond that. So that's kind of where we're at with gold. You'll notice that as we start to leave and as we show some distance between the point of control, that's actually the time that you want to trade. A lot of people actually try to take positions at the point of control. That's probably not advisable, because that's where your odds are probably more 50-50 than anything. But once you start to get some distance, and especially if you've faded or come off of the point of control and that served a little bit as resistance, then it's your opportunity, especially with some weakness, to sell in. And so here in this case, I'm going to probably be looking to sell on weakness of under 44.90 because that would be separation as well as continued bearish pressure. And the other thing too is the channels start to kind of align. So I'm still bearish, and as you can see, I grade every minute or every second. It is looking at the probabilities of success, and this is a short 73%. So it's kind of a B grade. It's not an A or an A plus, but it's not a bad trade, especially if you manage the risk and if you just understand that it's probably got a shorter time frame. As the sell goes on, your probabilities do start to increase. So you'll see that kind of fluctuates. What I would say is that we are near relatively heavy support. So that's part of the reason why you'll see this down here. This is an area of support. If there is going to be a turn, it should be here or somewhere around here. And if it isn't, then we're going to go down and we're going to test the lower levels. So that's kind of why it's going to be critical here for gold to find its place or just sell off. And I'm inclined to think that it's going to sell off, so I'll put a sell order in at 44.90, and I'll probably put a 4,500 stop on it, and we'll see how it trades. That's gold, and let me do one other thing. I'll actually show off NASDAQ and S&P. And then I'll leave my indicators running, and I'll leave gold up here and oil up here, and I'll put it on that. But what you'll notice is NASDAQ selling off as usual, kind of a typical situation, similar to what we just saw in gold with regards to oil rallying, gold and NASDAQ selling off, and gold and stocks selling off. And so I would continue that trend until it changes otherwise. And what you're starting to see is oil back above 98.14, so it's at the top of its range. And if it breaks out, you're going to see the NASDAQ crumble, and we'll go from there, right? So that's what's going to happen, and that actually will mean lower gold prices going forward. A couple other things of note. I have talked to a couple of U.S. gold dealers. They have not been able to buy gold and silver in months. They have a liquidity crisis going on. So what you think is expensive is not, in terms of what you could resell your gold for, you're not getting close to that. An ounce of gold at one of the dealers that I know, he's buying junk gold at $3,300 an ounce, which is far from where we're trading gold today. And so, that's part of the problem, is that you think gold should be going up, but these gold dealers are actually not buying it for anything close to what's going on in the paper market. And then I would say that on the oil side, the oil prices in the U.S. tend to be a bit more insulated. You really should be looking at Brent for a world benchmark. And Brent was, I believe, up around $112 not too long ago. I don't have a quote right now, but I would say that is going to be, that's why oil has this tendency to rally in the near term. I do think 120 in oil, in even U.S. WTI is likely. And one of the things that you'll notice, and I'll just bring the oil chart back, is that we are getting a bit of a continuation zone off of this oil trade. So I'm happy about oil. We went through a consolidation. We now have a secondary buy, and my second lot of oil just kicked in, and this is good. So hopefully we get to keep this thing going, and as I said, up to the highs is where I'd love to be. All right, so after that, with regards to stocks, a couple of key things that I would look at. We are at an interesting point just because it's the same Camarilla pivots. And so, if oil does sell off here, one would say that as long as NASDAQ and ES and the US stocks hold above their L3 or their L4s, there is a chance to rally. Why? Because we've sold off so much. And we are kind of at the bottom of uh, I think we're getting closer to the bottom, but we're not there yet. So what may end up happening is this low here in Nasdaq probably is going to have to get tested, and at some point they'll test that tonight, just like they'll test the highs of crude oil. When they do, if crude oil sells off, stocks will find a bottom and will rally. If crude oil continues to go, then we're going to see stocks sell off and gold. So that's kind of the trade. A couple of other interesting points to note. The 30-minute EMA that I use also works on NASDAQ futures. And so you'll see that 30-minute EMA, when it serves as resistance, and when it fails, it can fail through it. And we've seen a number of instances where that EMA does hold a lot of weight and actually serves as a launching off point for stocks and commodities. It's a great EMA. Um, and so, that kind of gets us here. The real issue is this a bottom or is this a flag? And we're going to find out. I am inclined to think that there is a little bit more, but we don't know yet. There's not enough information. I can't say for sure, but I do think that ultimately we should try to retest this bottom at some point. So, we'll see what happens here. Um, Same thing with ES. I think once you know one stock market, you probably know them all. But there's an opportunity. Same thing here. ES is a little, maybe a touch stronger, but not much. Similar pattern. Basically, let's see if oil finds a top, and if it does, then stocks can find a bottom and they can trade. The other thing too is if there is a rally or a relief rally of some sort, where else am I going to be looking for shorts? Well, I'm going to be looking for shorts back up here. A variety of instances, but in futures, I really think above 6,600 would be a pretty interesting short. On ES right now, we're trading 65.48, so there's a pretty significant rally that would have to take place, and so yeah, I'd be interested in seeing what that possibly looks like. Couple other things to note. I'm going to actually share my NKD chart. This is the Japanese stock market, just getting destroyed. The real critical thing to note is that Japan and the Japanese stock market is even more highly in tune with the price of oil. And I think that there is, if you wanted to look at a short that in the equities space and you're trading Asia hours, this is a great spot to be in, especially if oil is going much higher. We are probably at a bit of a bottoming pattern here, partly because we had sold off so much and the Japanese stock market was down 3%. 3+% on Friday. So there is a bit of a digestion period down here at these lows. But if you can get any kind of a rally, it could be a very strong short candidate, especially if you don't want to play oil or oil is a bit too much for you. So it's certainly got similar characteristics to the U.S. stock market, but even more geared towards being negatively correlated with oil. Last but not least, because I think we'll talk about Bitcoin, and I've been short Bitcoin forever. Those on my in my channel, and yes, DM me if you need to. If you want to subscribe, it's 40 or 59.95 a month. Those who know me and have been with me for a while know that I got bearish on Bitcoin back in November at 120,000, and we've watched it sell off ever since. Don't believe the bulls when they say that Bitcoin's going to rally back, because this is just what you've seen over the last week is really just um, a bear market rally. And the true nature of Bitcoin is that it's selling off like everything else, and it will sell off worse than everything else. It is like the Nasdaq, but on steroids. And so what you can see is that actually on Saturday we started off and we were basically just in a sell from Saturday through now, and it's transmitting, in my mind, an early look at what the Nasdaq potentially could do. Partly because it's Nasdaq geared, it's got Nasdaq tech money behind it. The and it's just going to look weak. Now I have a downside target of 27,500 in Bitcoin. I'm not even sure it's worth that, but I mean that is my downside target technically, and so I'll stick to it. And what you're noticing is that yes, you should be sellers in any kind of rally mode here, and there are various reasons as to why it's reclaiming weakness, and it's just because there aren't enough bidders at these levels, and you're going to see even more weakness going forward here on Bitcoin. Um, Personally, I like to sell on Saturday. And so, I don't actively trade Bitcoin, but I would say that the 70,500 was a really good level to sell. And I do think that we have um, right here, we basically broke this bottom. This is a pretty good selling opportunity for Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin can keep selling off, and so I kind of like it as a swing trade, and that's kind of all I'll say about it. It's just weak and is generally weaker than even the stock markets, and so something for y'all to think about. That's it for now. That's a half hour. Next time, feel free to ask questions. In terms of gold, somebody asked what my predictions on gold were. Look, I think gold. I still want to see it rally, and I think eventually it will. But you're going to need to see some stability in U.S. stocks and crude oil before I think gold catches a bid. You're going to get, I think, in gold an opportunity, and maybe soon, but I think you will get a gold down here at L4 again, 4,400 in this area, and so that's $100 away right now. Also think that if you can't hold there, we're going to see it. We've got some support where it may eventually hold 43.50, 43.60. You just got to be careful about it, because there is, other than when oil was selling off this evening, there's no sign of buying, and so recognize too that if you're trading this, you better have oil on your screen. I ultimately have oil and gold on both of my screens, and so it's just something for y'all to think about. That's it for now. Hope you had a good one. If you're interested in joining my group, or if you want to purchase the indicator, it is for sale. This indicator is private, invite only uh, on TradingView. So if you want it, let me know, and we can work out arrangements. And I think it's fantastic, and I've got a handful of people using it, and we've been improving upon it each and every day for the last 3 weeks. And so I'm already on version 5, and it's come a long way, and it's been fantastic. And it has certainly, I think, kind of been the culmination. It's helped me trade even more consistently, because there's certainly a lot of cool things that you can see that it does, and it's been great. So again, any questions, let me know, and it was great to have you on, and we'll be back here next week, same time. Talk to you later.